Hello everyone, this is Wes Henson, pastor of the Ridge Church, and the Ridge Church campus is located at 7350 Old Highway 13 in Carbondale, Illinois. And I want to thank you today for joining me as we give a quick on-the-go summary of this week's small group Bible study, and this is for the week of February the 6th, 2022 at the Ridge Church. And this is week 3 of the study, How to Avoid Life's Pitfalls. And if you remember in our first session, it was titled The Pitfall of Betrayal. In Genesis 37 was our focus. And then last week we focused on avoiding the pitfall of temptation. And that study was found in Genesis chapter 39, and we looked at the first 12 verses. Okay, so this is week 3, and the title of this week's lesson is The Pitfall of Injustice. How to avoid the pitfall of injustice. When faced with an injustice done to us, we just might be tempted to let our hope in God down. We might say something like, if God is just, then why did this happen? And our hope in the Lord begins to wane. So if you click on the links, you're going to find a study guide, a summary of this week's lesson, and also a couple of handouts. And then you can join us on the Ridge campus on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. or you can join us online Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. on Facebook or our website as we go into detail. All right, let's get back to our lesson. The point of this week's study is press forward in spite of injustice. So let me give you a little background before we get started today. So we're talking about Joseph. In fact, this 6-session study is a life study in Joseph. And Joseph has been put into jail for a crime that he did not commit. He was wrongly accused. And so Joseph had to work through the injustice that made him a criminal behind bars. So as a result, we would not be surprised if Joseph, under those circumstances, was constantly tempted to be bitter and angry toward God and toward those around him. But he had nothing to do with those kinds of feelings. He did not have feelings of bitterness or anger. Instead, Joseph allowed the Lord to let him bloom where he was planted. In other words, Joseph learned the way to be content, as the Apostle Paul did, in all circumstances. Okay, let's begin our study looking at the Word. We're going to begin in Genesis chapter 39, looking at verses 21 through 23. In verse 21 we read, "But the Lord was with Joseph and extended kindness to him." That is, right after Joseph is put into prison. "He granted him favor with the prison warden. The warden put all the prisoners who were in prison under Joseph's authority, and he was responsible for everything that was done there." So a truth that we can pull out of these verses is that we are to keep doing good in the face of injustice. Now, the key to Joseph's success was the favor of God. It wasn't Joseph's abilities, it wasn't his skills, it wasn't even his charismatic personality that made him successful. In all actuality, it was God who was at work in his life. And that's a good truth for us to embrace as well. God is at work in our life, and he brings about blessing and favor in front of other people. All right, let's move on to chapter 40. We're going to look in verses 4 through 8 specifically. So Joseph is in prison, and things are going going well for him there. And both the king's cupbearer and the king or the Pharaoh's cupbearer and his baker are in prison along with Joseph as well. And one night they each had a dream, and they were perplexed to interpret exactly what that dream meant. So in that culture, dreams were considered the way that the gods would communicate with the people, and there were special magicians that could give meaning to the dream that someone had. And so these two individuals had a dream, and they were trying to figure out what it meant. So Joseph heard about the dreams, and he told them, he made this statement, which was really against the cultural norm of the day. He told them that the interpretations, in verse 8, that the interpretations belong to God, not to some magicians. And then he went on to say, so tell me your dreams. So Joseph's words in these verses 4 through 8, tell us that his walk with the Lord, his relationship with the Lord remained strong throughout his suffering and his injustices. And the truth here from these verses is that we should not take bitterness or pain or anger out on those around us. All right, let's shoot on down to verses 20 through 23. So these two men, excuse me, had a dream, and Joseph said, so tell me the dream. And so they told him the dream, and Joseph interpreted the dream for each of them. And so to the cupbearer he said, well, what your dream means is that you're going to get out of prison and you will soon be serving in the Pharaoh's court. But to the baker, his outcome was going to be quite a bit different. Joseph said that he would be hanged by the Pharaoh. So then Joseph asked the cupbearer, who was going to get out and soon be in the presence of the Pharaoh, to put a good word in for him. And of course, the cupbearer said, yeah, sure thing. Okay, well, let's see what happens here. Read on in verse 21. So Pharaoh restored the chief cupbearer to his position as cupbearer, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand, just as Joseph said. But the Pharaoh hanged the chief baker, just as Joseph had explained to them. Yet the chief cupbearer, the one who was set free and in Pharaoh's presence, did not remember Joseph, so he forgot him. Oops, he forgot Joseph. And I'm sure that Joseph was expecting a quick release as soon as he heard that the cupbearer was back in good graces with the Pharaoh. But it didn't happen, and Joseph's release was delayed once again. So the truth here from these last verses is, for us, is don't be discouraged by delays. Again, going back to our point of the lesson, instead, press forward in spite of injustice. Okay, let me give you 3 applications that we can use as a result of our study today. And then I would invite you to choose one to put into practice this week. So as a result of our study in Joseph's life in the midst of the injustice that he faced, here's one application. One is look back. When have you seen God work for your good through a delay, a setback, or a change of plans? And then thank God right now for his unmatched wisdom and goodness. In other words, look back and think about, something that you had planned to do, and the plans got changed. They were delayed. There was a setback. Something happened, and so you had to do something differently. And yet, doing that, making that alternative plan, doing something differently, resulted in some kind of good thing in your life. That's the hand of God at work in your life. So thank him today for his wisdom and his goodness. Application number 2 is remember. Every time that you're tempted to complain about an unwanted circumstance or some delay to your plan, some setback, there's a verse that I want you to remember. And it's Psalm 16, verse 8. And that psalm reads this way: I always let the Lord guide me. Because he is at my right hand, I will not be shaken. So when we're tempted to complain about delayed plans, setbacks, remember to let the Lord guide you. Because he is there beside you, we don't have to be shaken. And then application number 3, check on someone else. Who do you know that needs encouragement today to remain devoted to God in the midst of whatever setback is going on in their life? And then to help them, use your own experience or share about Joseph's experience to let them know that God is completely trustworthy. no matter the circumstances. Okay, let's wrap things up for this week. You remember those inflatable punching bags? You know, you just punch them, and and no matter how hard you punch or what direction you punch them, they always come back to center. Well, that punching bag offers a visual picture of the life of Joseph. Despite numerous setbacks, Joseph always came back to center and renewed his faith in the Lord. Let us be inspired to do the same thing. Okay, so if you click on the links, you're going to find a study guide, you're going to find a summary of this week's lesson, and you'll also find a couple of handouts. And then join us on campus this Sunday morning at 9 a.m. or online Tuesday night at 6:30 on Facebook or our website as we go into greater detail. Okay, goodbye for now.